We'll get started in a moment. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Gagan Madan. I'm part of the AWS SaaS Factory Team with a specific focus on the SaaS Competency Partners. As per analyst reports, SaaS is one of the largest segments of cloud computing. With GenAI in the mix, there is a huge opportunity for us to help our customers unlock the value of GenAI for their SaaS applications. To aid that, we launched the SaaS Discovery program, which helps ISVs or customers engage with qualified SaaS competency partners in a 2 to 3 day workshop where they could dive deep and understand what does it take to leverage the GenAI capabilities within their SaaS applications. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues Victor Janssen, Anthony McLeod, and Akshay Patel, who would be spending the next 50 to 55 minutes to share their perspective on how and when can we use GenAI for our SaaS customers, and what are the use cases that are available for us to develop a mental model to have those conversations to help our customers innovate with their SaaS applications. With that, I would like to hand over to Victor Janssen, who is a solution architect manager for our startup segments with a specific focus on SaaS and GenAI. Over to you, Victor. You're muted, Victor.
Hey, thank you for that, Gagan. I'm really happy to have you all here and talk about GenAI and SaaS together. My name is Victor Jansson. I'm a solution architect manager here at AWS, and I work mainly with B2B startups. And this year, a lot of it is around GenAI and how do we unlock the value of GenAI for our customers. So I think it's a topic now we all been playing around with AI for last year, this year, and so on. But it's worth to just take one step back and place ourselves in the same room. So what is a GenAI and where does it fit? So AI is the bigger domain, and within AI we have machine learning. Within machine learning we have deep learning, and GenAI is a subset of this larger field that is AI. And talking about GenAI and in specifically large language models, which is what we typically talk around when we talk about GenAI, they are trained on massive data sets. So these are data sets on basically the size of all the data on the internet. That's kind of extreme, massive data sets, and it uses architecture that is called the transformer neural network architecture, and it can generate human-like content. So that can be music or text or video or any kind of digital output, essentially. Right. So when I work with my customers and the different solutions they are interested in or they are developing, there are 3 categories of GenAI use cases that I see pop up. And the first one is around productivity. So GenAI comes with this big value proposition to be able to optimize how do we run a business or the activities that we do in a business. So that could be replacing some processes or how we classify documents or translation, code generation, summarization, and so on. There's a lot of things and activities we can improve and become just a little bit more productive by using GenAI. The other piece is around chatbots or knowledge databases, but essentially around how do I get to the right answers, or how can I find the data that I need or the insights that I'm looking for. How can I provide this data or these insights to my customers, maybe through a customer support. And the third category is around content generation. So that's any type of solution where we are generating content. Could be, for example, emails or marketing copy, personalization of our product, or branding, or many other things like that. It's a space where we can use our imagination a lot. So when I look at GenAI or LLMs in particular, I use this pyramid a lot, and this is what I call the hierarchy of working with LLMs. We have the working with LLMs out of the box. So you can log into a service and just put stuff in and get value out very quickly. So this is, what we typically see all around the place now, like in the consumer space and sometimes in the business space too. But this is a way of leveraging the value of LLMs as it's being provided without doing anything with it. The next level after that is prompting, and this is when we're instructing the LLM to behave in a certain way, and we can do that through these input boxes, which we are prompting our LLMs in many popular products today, or it can be more programmatic, where we add layers of data which describes how should the LLM behave. And then we can optimize this, and a lot of the LLMs, it comes with parameters and different ways of fine-tuning this process and making it more specific to the behavior that we need it to do, or the business needs to reach. And on top of this pyramid, we have the training model. And training a model, especially a LLM model, is something that most businesses will not do, because it's very expensive process, and it's done by what we call the foundational model providers. But still, this pyramid is very useful to think about when you are talking to customers, to understand where does the solution fit, and are you suggesting the right level of solution. Looking at this pyramid, the out of the box, or the lower end of this pyramid, this is where you find your general knowledge. This is an LLM that behaves the same for everyone. And as you walk up in this pyramid, you can make it more and more domain specific, like more precise towards your use case. And as you go up the pyramid, so does the barrier of entry. You start to need more and more machine learning skills to actually operate on a certain level of the pyramid. Out of the box is very simple to get into, whereas the training is demands much more of ML skills and data skills to get there. For most companies and customers that I work on, we find the most value somewhere in the prompting fine-tuning area. So when I talk to my customers, I lead them through this GenAI journey, where I start at the bottom, evaluate, and I move up if it's needed. What we first want to find are, where are the low-hanging fruit, where can we gain value and realize value very quickly. One of those examples are, for example, Code Whisperer, which is a service that we are providing where an AI is generating code before it's written. This is enhancing the productivity of developers in very impressive ways, and it's fairly magical to use it if you're a developer yourself. And the results are impressive, where 57% of developers were faster when they were using Code Whisperer comparing to those who were not using Code Whisperer. But being there in the out of the box bottom of the pyramid, talking with customers around how can they use LLMs to be more creative as a creating companion, or improve their emails, or improve evaluate ideas and improve their operations. There's a lot of value to be found there in these very simplistic solutions. So that's an area that I suggest people working with the customers to have that conversation. Like, are they using the simple feature of GenAI first, and then you go up in the higher up in the pyramid. But in the end, where the long-term value is, and that's where we want to bring our customers, is higher up in this pyramid, because everyone and every business have access to GenAI. So this is in itself not an area where you can develop a unique value proposition. This is where the organization's data comes in. From using data that exists in the business together with GenAI, this is where you start to develop very unique or domain-specific value propositions. And you can do this without retraining, because retraining, again, is quite expensive, and it's an important concept to talk to customers about, how they can bring GenAI and their data together, and they can do so without too much of an investment. I have one example here. This is one of my customers. They are a call center SaaS, and they are generating transcripts from each call. What they wanted to know was, what is the customer satisfaction from each call? So by sending a transcription to the LLM, they could very easily get the sentiment from this call. Was it positive or was it not positive? And you can do that very simply by providing a conversation and just use the built-in functionalities of a suitable model and ask it exactly what you want. Like, is it a positive sentiment in this conversation, or is it not, right? So this technique is essentially, when we start to prompt with context, that is a simple way to realize the unique value, and no training or tuning is required. So I would recommend any customer to spend a lot of time here to think about, where could we do this, because it's a simple way to reach value, and it's a quick way with little investment to realize some of this value that can be realized with GenAI. So on the AWS side, we have Amazon Bedrock as one of our key GenAI services. It's ideal for prompting and bringing context into an LLM. It provides an access to a wide range of leading foundational models, and it provides that access through API, and it has an on-demand pricing available. And this is where I see a lot of customers start, and many of them don't need to go further than that. Bedrock is extremely powerful in what it can do. Going a little bit up in this pyramid, I mentioned knowledge databases, or the functionality to provide access to your workforce, or to an organization's workforce, or maybe providing a search to end users by providing a knowledge base database that is that you can ask a question, bring me, or ask it for insights, for example. Even though this is a technology that depends a lot on the data that exists at the customers, it can be achieved without training. So again, we can do this without much, without that investment that is required when we are training our models. I wanted to give you an idea how it's working. And if we have a user here that is asking something, for example, who is the current prime minister in the UK? And the model, if the model was trained on data before this prime minister became the UK, it will not be able to answer that. So that's true for any model on the market. What you can do instead here, if you have the same question, but you have a knowledge data or a database, for example, with all the news flashes or the data that will essentially include the knowledge of who is the current prime minister, you can have a middle layer that asks that database, and it will then cut out paragraphs that talks about the prime minister. So this can be used without an LLM, for example, using a vector database. It will retrieve that context, and then it will add the context plus your question, and now the model will be able to understand who is actually the new prime minister. So this is a very powerful architecture to merge the data that exists, even when there's a lot of data, together with an LLM without having to retrain. This method is called retrieval augmentation generation, and that is a method that a lot of the solutions that I work with my customers, they end up using RAG solutions many times. So they did retrieve data for the context, they include the context with a prompt, and then they use the LLM to reason around that data. Going further up in the pyramid, when we start to fine-tune this, so fine-tuning is about optimizing the results we're getting. So this is including adjusting prompt, but also parameters, because a lot of models allows you to send in parameters on how random do you want the answers to be, or how temperamental do you want the model to be. And by providing these parameters, you can adjust how the model will function. And you can also adjust your context and how you're providing context and so on. And by that exercise, you start to get an even more domain-specific behavior. My tip here is, when you're doing this, to establish early a benchmark. For example, if you're not using any parameters, what is the quality of the answers you're getting? And then as you are fine-tuning, you continue to compare with this benchmark. One customer that had great success with this is Booking.com. They took their knowledge that they have in creating travel experiences, together with a user-specific requirements or what they would want to experience. And by putting that together, they could provide they could use Bedrock to provide unique experiences for each of their users. And then we're going up to the top of this pyramid, where this is where we need the highest requirement for machine learning expertise. And this is also where we can get the most domain-specific use cases. But as I said, most customers will not want to walk up all the way here to develop their own models. However, some customers might already have an AI team that has been producing models or AI models. And why those models might not be GenAI models, you can use the output from those models that are trained on very specialized data and connect it as context to an LLM model for the reasoning. And here you can start to get really impressive domain-specific type of solutions. So your role as a partner, or the way you can help your customers to leverage this value from GenAI, is to help them to identify the right use cases and clarify where investment is needed, and clarify the different time requirements required. And then you travel with them through this machine learning value hierarchy, starting at the bottom and moving up. And in that process, you help them select the most suitable model, and you consider performance, and you consider the cost, and how well this solution is sitting in their specific use case. And this is an iterative process. So as you maybe start with the low-hanging fruit, or you start with out-of-the-box solutions, you start to travel upwards and make more and more unique and domain-specific or customer-specific solutions. So at AWS, we have a lot of AI services, and obviously part of your job in guiding our customers is around helping them understand what services are the most useful. And this is also where we can provide help to share where in the stack can a solution be realized. And many times it can be realized in many places. Important to note, though, is this is a very developing space. It changes by the minute almost, and I think even this image here is not showing all the services we have today. Point here is there's a lot of different services, and by helping our customers to use the right services for the right purpose, we can lead them to the best solution for them. I also wanted to mention our partnership with Hugging Face. So Hugging Face is this library, and they have over 500,000 of already trained models. And this is where customers can easily get access to very specific and precise models that might fit them really well. And by using Hugging Face, they can actually deploy to SageMaker. And this is essentially a one-click exercise where you, from the Hugging Face website, can actually click and get this model deployed on an infrastructure that is on the customer account. So this is also a showcase of the wide variety of solutions that you can provide to our customers. And as this model is providing at AWS, what we are aiming to do is to provide the best models for the best use cases, and we are constantly providing more and better models as they become available. Just last week, we introduced Mistral AI models on Bedrock, and Mistral is a European startup that builds very powerful models, which is actually competing and exceeding the performance of many other models on the market. And yeah, I think that is the main message here within working with GenAI on AWS is we provide an immense library and immense access to doing this matchmaking between what use case and what models are best fit for each customer. And with that was a lot of information in a short time. If there's one thing I want you to carry with you is this idea of this pyramid where you're helping our customers to start at the bottom and walk upwards to realize more and more value. And with that, I will pass on the mic to Akshay. We will have a fireside chat to talk a little bit more about how can we leverage value for our customers.
Hey, thank you very much for that, Victor, for that incredibly informative segment about the many different offerings that AWS has regarding generative AI, but also machine learning and artificial intelligence in general. Obviously, that is a lot of information for our folks here to process and to take in. And before we go into the second half here and start talking to some of our panelists about SaaS and how SaaS and generative AI really fit together, one question that I do have is, from a partner, let's just say, starting out their journey, learning how to integrate generative AI and maybe SaaS applications together, what's the best starting place or starting point that you would have for them, Victor? Where should they go to begin learning this process?
Right. So we're providing a lot of information online where partners can learn about the different services and so on. What I recommend is, first, if you have very little experience with our services, is to start with Bedrock. You can reach Bedrock and get the prompt and start to understand how it's using or how it's functioning, and get a sense for it firsthand. That's where I recommend our partners to start, is to get a little bit of that gut feeling for how do GenAI models work. Try some different models to see how they differ. Try changing parameters. You can do that also very easily from the Bedrock UI, where you just pull some levers and you quite quickly start to understand, oh, if I do it a little bit in this way, I get this kind of behavior. So that's where I would start from a technical or understanding point of view.
Yeah, trying to find a fun use case and then implementing a proof of concept, I think, is proving out to be something that we're seeing over and over again with many of our customers and partners, and fits pretty much exactly with what you were saying. So that being said, we do have another member here that is joining me today on this fireside chat. By the way, my name is Anthony McClure. If you didn't catch that earlier, I'm a senior partner solutions architect with the AWS SaaS Factory team, and I also work as the technical lead for the SaaS Competency Program. So I am absolutely happy to be here today. But joining me also from the SaaS Factory, you met one of us earlier, Gagan. He is here with us as well with the Competency Program. But also we have Akshay Patel joining us, who joins us from the business side of the AWS SaaS Factory. Akshay, welcome to our little fireside chat here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Anthony, yes, thank you very much. And Victor, thank you for taking us through the technologies and the options that we have to innovate with our customers. So as Anthony mentioned, my name is Akshay Patel. I'm the other half of Anthony, which is the business side of the SaaS Factory team. I am one of the SaaS strategists in the organization and also lead the generative AI for SaaS globally. The way to kind of think about SaaS Factory, or the way AWS thinks about SaaS, is it's both a business and a technology business model. And so we like to balance our conversations with a lot of passion to balance both what business needs and technology delivers. So thanks, and super excited to talk about this topic today, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you, Akshay. So, really kind of maybe diving into that a little bit from the SaaS Factory's view, and really just SaaS in general. How do you feel that SaaS companies are being affected by this pretty disruptive technology of generative AI?
Yeah, so perhaps let me step back and sort of define the way we think about SaaS, right? So if you look at the web page we launched at reInvent, the SaaS on AWS web page, we kind of talk about how SaaS is a business model, a business where it's both business and technology. And it's a model that is really built to deliver amazing customer experiences at scale with the agility that is needed in an organization to react to the changing economic or the requirements of customers. And we kind of saw this through the last 3 years with COVID and all these economic factors where SaaS companies were quickly able to adjust themselves. So SaaS definitely as a business model is quite interesting, right? And just to add a little bit of fact, McKinsey also found that the opportunity of generative AI is unlocking 3 times as much as what SaaS will, which equates to about 2.2 to about 4.3 trillion dollars, somewhere around that space. And so the question that begs in your mind is, what is the relationship with generative AI and SaaS, right? So if you take a step back and look at the foundation models of this, the foundations, the first principles of any new technology, what really excites me about generative AI is the ability to deliver net new experiences with interactive models, whether it's text, whether it's speech, or whether it's images. But how do you deliver these? So if you bring generative AI and put it together with SaaS, you have the ability to drive the most interesting use cases and experiences at customers at scale. And together it really delivers that. With a new component I'd like to challenge the team to think about is speed. So when those two really come together, I think it's going to be an interesting future. I still think we're very early, but it's going to be an interesting future going forward when putting those two technologies together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally in agreement with all of that. And when we look at SaaS and building SaaS specifically, so if we jump over to the just pure technology side of this and begin integrating or moving in these technologies such as generative AI, but also other machine learning technologies as well. One thing that comes to my mind as an architect is that really, from the SaaS perspective, not much changes, right? We still really have to focus in on those tried and true best practices of building out SaaS applications, and that applies ultimately very well, I believe, to the generative AI story. We still have to maintain tenant isolation. We still have to maintain data isolation. And that second point, data isolation specifically, can be a tall task when we're dealing with SaaS and generative AI solutions, especially if your customers are very domain driven, right? They have specific domains or corpuses of data and information that are unique to that tenant. Then the question becomes, okay, how do we make sure that that context of those particular tenants is included in this more general SaaSified application that we're building, but still make sure that we're maintaining the data and tenant isolation story that is ever so important when dealing with creating SaaS. These services that AWS has created in the democratization really of generative AI, giving lots of different choice, but at the same time creating simplified capability of just API access, for instance, to get something in Bedrock up and running, gives our customers a lot of power. These tools are stateless in their very nature as far as how AWS has built them. So applying those tried and true tenets of SaaS should be as ultimately as simple as it would be if you were accessing, say, a DynamoDB table, right? We need to just make sure that those tenets are being applied as we continue forward. I think I'll take a break. Yeah, did you have something to add there?
Anthony, I think those are all valid technology points that we think about naturally, but we don't often bring it up. The other one that I wanted to kind of add around the choice and the democratization is, if you look at the new family of foundation models our partner Anthropic released, the Opus, the Sonnet, and the Haiku, the three tiers of the same family, right? So if you look at Opus, it's the most intelligent foundation model with the highest amount of intelligence and performance. You have next Sonnet, which then optimizes on speed and cost, but and optimizes on time, but it takes a slight hit on the performance piece of it. And then the last one is Haiku, which is really for cost and cost effective. And then further, what you're giving up is a little bit of performance. If you think about that in SaaS world, if you look at how we go to market, it's even tiered. Take the most basic use case, basic, medium, and enterprise. You could potentially even see tiering across the different foundation models and generative AI for the value and the cost of supporting such technologies and delivering higher value to your customers. So it's got a lot of similarities, and it's just a really exciting area to kind of think about.
To double click on that just a tad here too, and I think maybe this question is coming a little bit out of left field for you, Victor, but we have all of this variety, right? And these different options that AWS is providing to our customers, which I think is great, right? It really gets to the point of what Akshay is mentioning. There's going to be a right model for the customer, for the workload that they're trying to create or the outcome that they're trying to generate. But what's the process that we see our customers going through in order to try and find what is the right foundation model to really, work through or work with as far as a workload is concerned?
Right. So because of these different features of a model, where I find is most important is to understand, am I looking for general knowledge or general AI or that kind of thinking, or more specific use cases? Because the more specific use cases I have, the more I'd rather have a smaller model. More maybe it's my own developed model that my internal AI team has built, which is providing simple values, for example, a simpler prediction, and then you add another model on top of that that is driving insights from that output. I think there's a lot of models, and there are coming new models, like you said, with the latest Anthropic models. We have the Mistral model. What we have seen is you quite quickly that you start to see some models that behaves in a way that fits more customers. So before this meeting, like where I see a lot is using the Anthropic models. They fit a lot of the use cases that my customers are looking for. But I think the main message here is to not stick to one model for the foreseeable future, but build it in a way that you can actually change model, but also find a way to benchmark your model, so you know the performance of your model, because that way you can actually know, is it worth is it worth changing to a different model.
And when you're referring to benchmarking in this case, I assume that's probably a very IP, a very tenant, a very customer driven metric, right? Because what is the outcome for customer A that they're looking for from a particular model for a particular prompt may be very different than customer B, right?
Exactly. So the benchmarking here is I work with the customer, and we set up the benchmark, like this is how you're providing this prompt or this context, you get this output, and then we manually evaluate what is that output, how good is that, and then we can benchmark with providing the same input to another model or an adjusted input to another model, and then see which is the one that is behaving more as we want. You can obviously do that more and more sophisticated, but even doing that very manual is it's something that I recommend customers to do early on, like to find that level, like where is the base level, because I see a lot of customers wanting to add more and more data, and if you add data that doesn't have the specificness that you actually want, but you're actually providing more general data, like a conversation. The model itself has been trained on so much conversation, so you don't really want to feed them more of that, because you can actually skew the output to be less as you want it, right?
Right. To that point of fine tuning models or trying to get the most out of them, making sure that you're meeting your business objectives. I think we have, especially when we're talking with SaaS related customers or building a SaaS application, the questions of fine tuning, and whether fine tuning by way of model fine tuning itself really is the best way to start or to go, or can that customer get everything done that they need to, or those tenants with just using retrieval augmentation, for instance. In your looking with and working with a variety of customers at this point in time, are you seeing that most customers are able to get by doing retrieval augmentation and not necessarily having to go to that next step and bring in domain data specific for their models and fine tuning, or is it a mixture of both at this point?
I see, like the general case, I see the retrieval augmentation model to be very successful, because you so quickly get results from implementing it, and you are providing data. It's just you provide your specific data inside a prompt or inside a message to the LLM, right? When you consider the cost and the investment required, I see that being much more successful than being too creative on your own models. There's some businesses that has the expertise and they have the resources to do that as well. But for most of the customers or the SaaS businesses that I work on, they want to get a new feature and impress their customers quick. And the retrieval augmentation method is really powerful there.
And Anthony, just wanted to add another point there. So if you look at the investments AWS has made with Bedrock, where it's so easy to start knowledge bases or agents, even folks who don't have deep domain knowledge, uh, the, using techniques like RAG and others is a quick and easy way to prove out how you can actually take advantage of the technology and also experiment along the way, right? What I would be curious about, and I think it's still quite early, is the balance between fine-tuning and RAG, right? So if you look at the fundamentals of why those two exist, fine-tuning is based on some initial training data that's embedded into how that model is built. And if you look at RAG, what it's really solving is the ability to dip into data that's changed past that fine-tuning and release date, right? And if you look at the use cases, there may be use cases where it doesn't matter as much. But if you think about, say, billing, what's my simple question, what's my monthly billing? That's going to change. It's not data that's you're going to ever fine-tune with. But at some point, I also question what is the business case and how should customers think about balancing fine-tuning versus RAG over a period of time. I have not seen this any data or any points of views around this space. Be kind of interesting to see what our partners are thinking about and dive more deeper into it. Because when it comes to, say, MLOps or replacing your models and things like that, it becomes an interesting question on how you balance the multiple models to solve specific use cases. So I'm super interested to see what the community comes up with in the business case. And early on, it's just because we have knowledge base and agents, what it does is it allows you to experiment, prove it out. But as you go from POCs or proof of concepts into productization, these sort of become real operating questions. As you start scaling, these sort of become operating questions that you start embedding. And that's why I'm super excited with our AI competency partners and our SaaS competency partners delivering this value to customers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Akshay. I want to bring Gagan into this conversation just briefly here. I think Gagan is actually taking a look at what's going on from all of our participants that have joined today. And again, thank you to everybody that is here. Gagan, is there any questions that have come in from the chat up to this point, or anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, there's one interesting question here. So what use cases are we seeing traction within the healthcare ecosystem, right? Specifically to GenAI and SaaS?
Actually, have you seen anything?
Let me take one. So healthcare itself is such a big and complex area, right? But if you think about the basic fundamentals that's broken in healthcare globally, is the access to the ability to have access to a patient data at all times when that patient is actually working with different specialists, hospitals, clinics, right? I think the last few years, we've seen a lot of ERP customers or a lot of regulations around how to share and open data across different systems, ERPs, databases, hospitals, whatever, starting to become more open. And it's a complex area. And one of the things I know a couple of my customers have been talking about is how do you actually look at the data once you solve the data sharing problem and augment that with research data or clinical data or even trial programs if you're in oncology to kind of quickly help identify potential either insights into patient care or even insights into opportunities for patient recovery. I do think it's a pretty early space. I think there's a lot of paper trail work in the industry, depending on which country segment you're working in. But even if you look at a simple use case, such as regulations, releasing some sort of document and regulation change using generative AI to go out, fetch that content and make meaning out of it for the legal team, for the clinical team, for the research team, is an area that a lot of customers are innovating, right? Obviously, there is the question of hallucination, but that's where the architecture models such as RAG and human in the loop all comes in. That's where all the regulatory pieces, where we started to see global country regulations starting to come up, comes in. There's a lot of biases as well, right? Depending on the data you're pulling in and training on. How do you openly share potential biases just to make sure that you're not building experiences that could go down the wrong path, right? So lots to think about in that space for sure.
Right. And then just to add to what Akshay mentioned, right? So every use case or every process that's happening, whether it's in the healthcare sector or any other customers that you have in any segments, all of these could leverage the possibility of GenAI capabilities that they could use to innovate within their applications, right? So you could, like as I mentioned in the at the start of the presentation, we have this program called the SaaS Discovery program, right? So this is a program that's been tried and tested where you could work with your customers, take a look at their existing solutions and see how you could leverage these GenAI capabilities and help them innovate, right? So it's like a no risk, low risk kind of environment where you spend 2 to 3 days with your customer and jointly partner with them to build what does it take to unlock the value of GenAI for their SaaS applications. Yeah.
Okay, so, taking a look at all of this, obviously this is a very exciting time that we're living within. This is a very exciting technology that we have that's starting to become ubiquitous now across the industry. There's huge opportunity potential, I believe, with the technology, and it certainly has been disruptive, such as we've been talking about here. But what I would like to do now is to maybe take our crystal balls out for a moment, look into the future and what the landscape of solutions, specifically SaaS solutions, might look like as generative AI really becomes mainstream. What does the future over the next 3 to 5 years kind of look like for a company that is building applications today? And I think I'll start with Akshay on this one, since he and I have talked about this pretty extensively.
Yeah, it's I could be completely wrong here, Anthony. So you're kind of putting me on the spot, and it's the session's been recorded, right? So please take this with a grain of salt.
We've got you on the record, actually.
Yes, indeed. Look, I think we're in an era where we've been talking a lot about how SaaS can deliver the experiences at scale, right? We talk about building teams to support those experiences. And what I mean by that is the right sales teams and marketing structures for growth, for product-led growth, as an example, customer success, to make sure that any new feature or times of renewal or value is being shared with customers, working backwards from their needs. It's about re-architecting your product teams to build the right solutions, whether it's optimization or building new experiences, basically create activation moments and moments of wow. It really will amplify that, right? And what I mean by that is, if you think about the current investments in POCs, where the OpenAI sort of took the world of generative AI with Storm with chat agents, one of the biggest use cases we see, as also Victor mentioned, is a chat agent for customer success or support, right? But here I question, what happens when the technology becomes stronger? So what is the role of customer success? What is the role of product management? What is the role of sales? And it's scary, but exciting. Why is it scary? It's because what you've been doing all this time, which is all the hard work and all the unfun work, you can potentially offload it to technology. But what ends up happening is teams like customer success and product management, the silos get broken down. And suddenly a customer success leader could add a bit of data capabilities and analytics in their resume and be able to actually help the business understand the human side of what really is happening, which technology cannot potentially answer, right? While generative AI makes it feel convincing, the reality is there's an entire data layer um, that sits within the people. So I am pretty bullish about the changes. I don't think it's about job losses. I think it's about job evolutions. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, that our future jobs, my kids' job will never be something that I ever knew about. I think we're starting to see elements of that, right? So that's from a job perspective. So and it's a scary area, right? So I do think as partners working with our customers, focusing on the investment of bringing up their teams into what generative AI means for their business, augmenting it with the depth and breadth of knowledge that they have, and then our partners who are on this call augmenting some of the work that's needed, migrations, modernizations, whether it's building new SaaS solutions, whether it's kind of breaking the silos of data with zero ETL jobs and things like that. It starts to all come together, right? So customers working with our partners is a very powerful story. I'm super excited about that as well.
Yeah, I would say that if I were to really, try and put my finger on the largest change that's going to come about due to this technology, it's, in my opinion, going to cause a revolutionary change in the human to computer interaction space. The way that we engage with our systems today will be vastly different in the next 3, 4, 5 years down the road. As we get to a point with generative AI and the large language models get good enough in a conversant way of communicating with humans, that we will be able to interact collaboratively with our personal systems, with our applications that we're looking to build into the future and provide to our customers, in a more conversational, collaborative way to get the information that we are always, as humans, striving to get, right? Because we have this mountain of data that exists that's been building over time. We've been trying to come up with ways to understand that data, to be able to deliver it in a way that human beings can interact with. Generative AI gives us the opportunity to allow the human to more easily interact with that data and in a more natural way. Now, could that be used for ill or or good? That remains to be said. And I think actually kind of covered on some of that too. But the entire nature of how applications look, how they're interacted with, I feel will be very different in the near future.
Yeah, I think Anthony, that
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I was going to say that's an interesting view as well. It was a topic we spoke about as well. In the recent few years, we've heard a lot about product-led growth and how product-led growth is amazing and how it allows you to scale. But my crystal ball tells me it's going to take community-led growth to another level. You might see emerging things like agent-led growth. Uh, there's quite a lot of new ideas floating out there in how it's just going to change the way in which we interact, right? And you kind of see this in sort of brute force ways today, but with say agent-led models, a single persona in a SaaS company, say they're a technician or they're a billing expert or whatever, or say data analyst expert in a SaaS solution, also would love to collaborate with other data analysts across your tenants, across your customers, across your communities. And that will just change the way in which even basic go-to-market works, right? So it's quite an interesting space, which means get ready to architect for that, Anthony and Victor.
Right.
It's lots of challenges in that space too.
I think we have an interesting question as we are close to the end of our time. So about data privacy, right? So there's a question on how do we benefit from a more diverse set of public data, but without exposing proprietary data of clients? Any thoughts on that?
Maybe pass that one over, Victor. You have a perspective on that?
I would have to think about that one a little bit. I don't feel I have
Let me take a stab. Let me take a stab, and let me build upon.
I think this really goes more to that democratization of data too, right? As a question there too. Go ahead, Akshay. Sorry.
Yeah, let me kind of build upon the use case and the question for healthcare, right? So if you think about open regulatory data, or you think about clinical trial data, or you think about trending data, perhaps there is a much more democratization of that across foundation models who are consuming the same open set of data. And I think, and I mean, don't quote me on this one, this is my personal view, but I think as you start to see a lot more training and a lot more generation of large language models, the emerging trend is coexisting the training with synthetic data, right? So now that's starting to edge into differentiation of how synthetic data is used for training large language models. So that starts to show you what paths these different models will go down. And then the third one is the use case base. So if you look at the healthcare use case, the question about data privacy, which is my data, which is my patient data as an end user, is really my data. And also within my data, whether it's mental health, whether it's medical, whether it's family supported, there's also requirements around isolating those kind of data to clinics and hospitals and insurance and all that complexity. So there will be sort of the common data layer. There will be need to fine tune or look at your tenant specific data based on use cases and really use the foundations and the fundamentals of SaaS, which is tenant isolation, security, retainability, data residency, all of those foundational playbooks come back into play, right? And when you think about the privacy or the data specific to say a particular tenant, it will start opening up a lot more conversations about commercialization of that, whether it's your customers willingly sharing that data with you, but you have some sort of agreement to anonymize components of it. And how do you sort of do that to develop these new commercial models, right? Because I do think data then becomes sort of the moat of how you think about how GenAI and SaaS come together. So lots to think about there, but yeah, I would suggest think about how you're really solving the core problem, and then think about the value of that core problem. So measure or figure out a way to measure with your customers on what that value really means, right? Answering the most common customer support question, which is how do I reset my password, is not going to be the differentiating chat solution for you. You might as well use off-the-shelf solutions. You might as well Amazon Q for Business to sort of break down the silos across your customers' organizational silos. But it also gives them a way to kind of play around and understand the capabilities or the limitations of these technologies without getting super overwhelmed with transformer network architectures and the sort of tokenization and all the complexities. So the partners play a good, phenomenal role in kind of balancing that conversation where you're using your expertise and what you're investing in and the innovation that you're investing in to augment what really matters to a customer. not all customers want to become chat agent engineering companies. That's it's just where the broader industries at the moment.
Perfect. Thanks, Akshay. And I think we're at time. And thanks, Anthony, Victor, and Akshay for joining us and helping our partners to kind of build that initial mental model to get them started to have those conversations with our customers to see how GenAI and SaaS converge together. As an action item, I would suggest that if you have any questions on how you could leverage various programs that we have, like the SaaS Discovery or the SaaS Competency Program, or for that matter, reach out to the likes of Akshay, Anthony, and Victor, please reach out to us at the alias that's mentioned on the next slide. And so if you could just move to the next slide, please, Victor. And and we'll be happy to kind of get you connected and also bring you up to speed on how you could leverage these various programs, right? If you're an existing SaaS competency partner, you already know what SaaS Discovery is. Try to use that to define what's the art of possible for our customers. And if you're a services a consulting partner who does not have the SaaS competency already, reach out to us and we will see how we can get you on board quickly to help more customers of ours, right? And ISVs, like software organizations, you have your customers, bring them in. We have people who could provide them guidance on how to get started. And I would request you also to spend a moment right after you close the WebEx session to leave a feedback for us to understand on what are the topics that you would like to hear from us next and where are the areas that we could support you in. With that, thank you all, and it's a wrap.